Hello there. I'm Tommy. Welcome to Blitz Transmissions. This is the Blitzcast number 11. I am joined today by the lovely Jen.
Hello.
I'm finally not alone anymore. I was actually going to do a third week on the Blitzcast alone, just covering some of the recent Star Wars news because we've been getting lots of that lately. But we had a teaser trailer come out for a certain Star Wars series for a season 2, and Jen and I were talking about it, and we were like, oh, let's talk about Andor. So hence, we decided to release this episode a day later than the scheduled Saturdays so that we could make sure that this got out and we had a good conversation about it. Before we get into the content of this episode, as always, make sure to check out all of the social media links in the description below, that being my Instagram, my collection page for Instagram, where I give collection updates, things of that nature, my X page, as well as my Discord. Discord's free to join, by the way, gets you in touch with my more tight-knit community here in the Blitz Brigade. And other than that, make sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Definitely go check out my interview that I did with Daryl DePriest. That came out maybe a week or two ago now, where we talked about Star Wars, talked about action figures. Been getting that post has been shared around a few times on Instagram with some Star Wars action figure pages. And shout out to Sith Lord 229 for giving me a follow on Instagram. That was pretty cool, brother. Aside from that, that's all I got for housekeeping. Jennifer, what's new? Why have you abandoned me for 2 weeks?
Because you abandoned me. You switched shifts, and so we just never see each other ever. Which is... It's fine. I'll get over it. Your son and I will we'll just hang out together.
I've abandoned my child.
But no, it's fine. We just don't see each other as much when you're on second shift.
Essentially, that's pretty much it. It's either record a podcast at like 11 at night when I get home, or wait till the next day. Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. So. But other than that, working hard or hardly working, you know what I mean? And it's Christmas time, so woo! Very exciting.
We have the Christmas Black Series display behind us that I put up on November 1st.
I know everyone at work has been like, "Oh, I think I'm going to start putting my tree up," and I'm like, "What do you mean just now? It's been Christmas for 2 weeks. Get on it."
I love Christmas so much. Christmas is the second Halloween's over, the Christmas season starts, and people say, "Oh, Tommy, what about Thanksgiving?" And my response is usually, well, Thanksgiving is just way more fun when there's Christmas decorations. So.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, Jen, we have 2 more podcast episodes that will come out until the Skeleton Crew, the Skibbity Crew, starts coming out on Disney Plus on Tuesday, December 3rd. That's pretty much all I have to say on that. I am mildly excited for the show, cautiously optimistic. Those trailers have looked pretty fun. It looks like I'm going to get into something a bit lighthearted, a bit fun, which I think we as the Star Wars fandom need right now. And then we had even more announcements. I just made a video last week, topical video on the YouTube channel, talking about how I'm very frustrated and kind of over these constant announcements from Lucasfilm that we're doing this movie, we got this person to write, we're doing this movie, we got this actor, actress. Well, I guess there was like a D23 in Brazil. Okay. Because apparently that's where we do big Disney announcements now, is Brazil. Over the last week, and then they announced even more Star Wars movies.
Okay.
So it sounds like now the Rey Skywalker New Jedi Order film that was supposed to take place in universe about 15 years after the end of The Rise of Skywalker, where Rey kind of takes on more of an Obi-Wan Kenobi role, like a Jedi Master role, that has been canned.
Okay.
But they haven't said that. It's just been removed from the slate.
Oh, okay.
They're now doing a trilogy of movies in place of that, with basically the same concept.
Okay.
Why? Why are we doing? Why? If you guys want to see my thoughts where I rant and rave, just go check out that video. Jen, do you have any thoughts whatsoever on the Disney and Lucasfilm announcing movies and then nothing happens with them? It's happened like 10 or 12 times now.
It's kind of interesting, especially working in higher ed now. There's a lot of that type of like politics and corporate thing going on where like either there's been talk like under the table for a really long time and then just like an announcement happens and it's like, and we're doing it, and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? Or the opposite happens where they talk and they hype up and they say that things are in the works, but then nothing happens with it. And I think that's just a lot of like corporate and like higher business people, like administrations. So on the flip side of that, with Disney, you know, it's unfortunate that they, and I feel like this is seen in like the sequels and stuff like that, where they don't think big picture, and they don't think about how, like, timelines on like when should we actually announce this. Like, I'm just thinking like the Percy Jackson series on Disney. It was like announced in like 2021 or 20, like something like pretty far back.
It was a while ago, yeah.
But it was enough where it was like, okay, now I'm a little bit hyped for it. And then they were giving updates throughout their like casting and then the filming process and the editing to know that like something is going on with it because they announced it so far back. But with Star Wars, they announced something and then it's like, then you don't hear about it ever again. And then it gets canned or 8 years later, they're like, do you remember? We're going to do it now, but we're going to change everything about it. So I just think, I think they need to talk a little bit more big picture. Yeah. And this is the same with higher ed of like, ask the people that are working with the public. Ask the people that are on the front lines, to use that corporate terminology of what would you see in the public? Like, how would the fans react to something like this? And higher ups like that don't think like that because they don't interact with the public. So
they're super out of touch. Yeah. I think our friends at Sarlacc Digest on their podcast, they brought up a really good point on their most recent episode where they were saying, you know, maybe it's a money thing. Like they want to close these deals with these writers or these actors, but they can't do that unless they make an official announcement as like part of the deal so they can get paid.
Right.
So they just make the announcement, paying the people, and then things go south from there.
Which is what I mean by like the politics behind it. Like there's, I mean, there's politics in every type of business interaction. I know.
No way.
Which is, you know, it's frustrating for the normal person to be out of that, but then also playing a part in it. Yeah. You know, because they're banking on excitement from the public, but they don't actually talk to the public. So it's kind of interesting how all of that works. Yeah. And maybe I should start my own podcast of all of my corporate and business.
I think there's a lot of people in this community that would actually watch that, just because I know a lot of people that are very fed up with all the corporate stuff going on with Star Wars recently.
So anyway.
Yeah. So there was a teaser trailer that came out. It was hard for me to find because I thought I saw it on official Star Wars social media, but apparently I didn't because I wasn't able to find it. I really had to dig. I had to go on X and like dig for it. A teaser trailer, essentially a sizzle reel for Andor Season 2. Now, we did get an official release date for Andor Season 2 being April 22nd, 2025. It's probably going to be 12 episodes, just like the first season was. We've heard from day one that the plan for Season 2 was that it was going to be 4 arcs of 3 episodes, each one covering a different mission that Cassian goes on now that he's in with the yet-to-be-named Rebel Alliance. And then the final 3 episodes, the end of that last episode of Season 2, is allegedly seamlessly going to go into where we first see Cassian in Rogue One. So, Jen, you saw the sizzle reel. How are we feeling about Andor Season 2?
Well, just based off of how much I loved Andor and love Rogue One, I'm very excited for it. I think it's such a unique story. And I could watch that type of storyline all the time. It's so captivating. And it's unique to Star Wars. But it feels like Star Wars.
For sure.
So that's pretty cool. And I am really excited because I like the idea of it being kind of different storyline, or not storylines, but different missions.
Yeah.
Because, the first season, it's leading us through Cassian's just like character development and why he even kind of joined.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really cool way to move us along without it dragging.
For sure. I did also want to show you Empire Magazine. This is your first time seeing this. Did a cover. We have Cassian with a nice little get up here.
Handsome.
We have Mon Mothma, who we'll be seeing again, and Director Krennic from Rogue One, the main villain from Rogue One. So we did know that Director Orson Krennic was going to be making a return. Any thoughts on how he'll come into the fold here?
No, remind me.
You don't remember Rogue One?
I do remember, but just like...
So, Director Krennic is the one that's in charge of the Death Star project.
Right.
So, Project Stardust. I don't know. I really also don't know how he's going to play into this story. I don't know if he just gets caught up with, like, the ISB, and he might tie in with Dedra in that way. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens. Another familiar face that was shown right at the end of the teaser trailer was K2SO. Got one single shot walking down kind of a bridge. I really personally, I'm excited to see K2 back in Star Wars. Thoughts on that?
I mean, he's hilarious. I think he adds. I don't know. He adds so much comedic relief to this really serious storyline. Yeah, and he's a badass droid.
Yeah. When it comes to Andor, I think Andor's kind of been like a black sheep with the new Star Wars content. And a lot of people, when I say that, will assume that I'm saying that it's the only good one. It's definitely not what I'm saying. It's just a very different vibe to the rest of what we've gotten with the Disney Plus Star Wars. So, Jen, you say you love Andor. What gravitates you toward that kind of a story, that kind of a setup?
I think because there's so much back to political talk, but there's so much of that political underline with all of Star Wars, and but we get caught up in the Jedi and the Mystic and because that's the interesting story with especially the Skywalker saga.
Yeah.
So I love Andor because it's not the Mystic, it's the real shit.
We're getting away from that, yeah.
But it's not boring. I feel like there's some episodes of a few, like some shows, whether it's Clone Wars or Rebels or Mandalorian or anything, that like those episodes where there's none of that Mystic. It's like, oh, okay, it's really, and it's a mission. Okay. They drag a little bit more, but Andor is so in tune with his character. We're not jumping all over the place like the Acolyte. Seriously, it's about Cassian, and we stay with Cassian, even with like the Dedra storyline and, you know, those
Mon Mothma.
Yeah, there's...
Get some Luthen in there.
But it really is Cassian's character that it's about. And I really like that consistency in it. And it's super cool, and there's all kinds of, like, heist missions and, you know, his, you know, cool spy stuff, which I love.
Yeah, Andor is very unique because it's... I remember not being hyped for the show at all when it was first announced. I'm like, yeah, whatever, like... An original character from Rogue One is getting his own series. Spy thriller is what they kept advertising it as. I'm like, okay, whatever. Then the show came out. I was really enjoying it. You know, I'm a Star Wars shill. I tend to enjoy most stuff, but I really was enjoying Andor. I really enjoyed the slow burn. Mm-hmm. I think for a lot of like content creators and podcasts, I don't think it took off right away. Because there wasn't those big cameos every episode. You didn't have those big clippable moments where people could take it and get a bunch of views on TikTok or something. Because I vividly remember when the show was coming out, the reception was like lukewarm on it. Not a lot of people were talking about it. And then the show was done. And then all of a sudden everyone wanted... Yeah. Now, if you ask people, they'll just word vomit to you because their favorite YouTuber said it. That Andor is the best series and the most well thought out series out of all the Star Wars series.
And I think it kind of is, to be honest. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think because it's not banking on the cameos and all of that, they were all of our complaints about, you know, the Acolyte and just other projects was that they were trying to shoehorn so much so that they would get a lot of hype. Andor's to use your term, the black sheep, because they're not banking on that. They're not banking on that hype. They focused on a really interesting story that wasn't, like you said, wasn't hype for to start, but they told a good story so that people would enjoy it by the end of it. So I think that's what stands out with Andor.
It's interesting too. It just goes to show the difference in writing style, because we've heard a lot of, you know, the way the Acolyte was written was in a writer's room, where they essentially had 4 teams of writers, and each team was working on 2 episodes of the 8-episode series. So, of course, you're going to end up with a disjointed, you know, hodgepodge of a show. Andor did what the Acolyte tried to do, which was take new characters and very minor characters from the Star Wars universe and tell a compelling story. I think honestly, Andor had a lot easier of a time than shows like The Mandalorian or The Book of Boba Fett or Obi-Wan Kenobi, because you don't have to worry so much about, you know, the things that the characters do affecting things that happened before in the timeline or after in the timeline. You can just do whatever with Cassian, you literally just have to keep him alive so that he can be alive for Rogue One. The same goes for Mon Mothma. You just have to have her live. Everybody else in the show can die. Everyone else in the show, there's some more stakes for everybody. I mean, even for Cassian and Mon Mothma, you don't know what's going to happen to them, you know, leading into where we see them later on in the Star Wars timeline. So I think they have that luxury there where they're writing characters that really don't have much else that was already written. So they can play a lot more and not have to worry about messing with the continuity of the timeline. Yeah. And I think for a lot of those other shows that play with a lot of legacy characters, that it makes it a lot more difficult to, you know, you're kind of boxing yourself in immediately with writing them.
Yeah, but I also think that just having a consistent story right from the start is going to help you.
For sure.
As we've seen many a times, not only in Star Wars. You know, keep the same writer in the mix, same director, because that can, if it's not consistent, that's what's going to throw off the watchers.
I think the other thing that really helped Andor was you had Tony Gilroy, who did the work for his character for Rogue One, is the same guy doing it for all of Andor. Mm-hmm. So you have one guy writing the same character through multiple projects. It makes it a lot easier to have that character feel compelling and cohesive.
And just the vibe. Like
the vibe too.
Andor and Rogue One have a unique energy, and it's clear because of one person writing it, because if season 2 leads into Rogue One, it's just gonna feel like a trilogy.
Yeah, right.
And I think that's super cool. Mm-hmm. I love when things like start fitting into place. And as we've watched Star Wars through, there's been a few of those moments where it's something that came out 10, 20 years later, but it fit in, and now it all makes sense. Yeah. Which I think is a cool part of Star Wars, and I know I've talked about this before, but with Rogue One and Andor specifically, it's so seamless. It's really it makes me excited.
So just to go over a couple characters, we left. I honestly, I feel like one of the characters I'm most interested to see in season 2 is Mon Mothma, because we left her at such a dire moment in her story, where she's willing to have her daughter betrothed to a crime boss's son. Mm-hmm. And luckily on her part, that's also what her daughter wants to do. Mm-hmm. So her daughter's not really fighting her on it. But yeah, Mon Mothma's willing to do that in order to secretly move her family's money to give to Luthen and to the rebellion. I think her husband is in on some kind of conspiracy against her. Mm-hmm. That was a cool dynamic. This like fake relationship that she has with her husband, the awful relationship she has with her daughter. Mon Mothma is a good example of like a lot of the characters that are willing to go to the extremes in Andor have all lost everything that means anything to them. Mon Mothma has lost her reputation. She lost her relationship with her husband, with her daughter. Her whole family hates her. And she's putting all that energy into the rebellion, She's doing things that are kind of shady, sparking up old relationships with the banker to help her, with the crime boss to help her. Whereas, with Cassian, we literally see him at the end of the show telling Luthen, let me join you or kill me. Those are the only options that make sense to me at this point, because his whole home has been destroyed. His people on Ferrix have been killed. It's now under Imperial control. So is there anything you're like looking forward to? Predictions on Mon Mothma and Cassian are obviously my big two.
Just while you're talking about Mon Mothma. The dynamic with her husband and her daughter remind me of that. Again, this is going back to our woke feminist podcast a handful of weeks ago.
Getting woke, talking women in Star Wars.
It's a great podcast. So it reminds me of this. I don't know if it's a poem or just a parable or something, of like talking about the husband and the daughter, or like the father and the daughter making fun of your mother as a way to connect together. Okay. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I've not.
It's like, I can't remember the exact words of it, but it's talking about the daughter wanting to feel more empowered teams up with the father to poke fun at the mom. Interesting. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it's just like a female experience of when you hear that, it's like, oh shit, I've done that before.
Really? Wow.
And it's more of like that, it talks about like the idea of feminist progression
okay.
of pulling away from that image of the normal mom or the normal female.
Yeah.
But in turn, you're going against another woman.
Interesting. Interesting.
Anyway, so that's when you're talking about their dynamic. That's what came to mind.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really interesting to see that this almost a universal experience, obviously with much higher stakes, and way more obvious of a situation. Right. But that's just what came to mind. And then as far as Cassian goes, I think it's pretty interesting to think about how his whole situation compares to like any type of regime or I guess terroristic or government takeover. And you think of like the Holocaust or something where those people in the mix deciding to help or deciding to take charge or join another army or join
because they've lost everything.
Yeah. And so that's what I really love picking apart those types of parallels in Star Wars. And I think because Andor is like about humans in this,
it's about people
in this fantasy world. They're able to kind of do it 1-to-1 a little bit more. So like, I mean, Andor's home is taken over by a corrupt, terroristic government. Fascist government, that's the word I was looking for. And I mean, what can we think of, for that? There's places in the world right now that are under that situation.
Right now, as we speak. So, as we sit in our comfy chairs and we yap about Star Wars.
So I think that's what's so eye-opening about Andor, and I'm excited to see how they empower him a little bit more. Like, we've seen his growth through this first season of not wanting to touch any of this, and then, finally seeing that, well, I have nothing to lose, but I also, I see now that I need to do something.
Yeah.
And so I want to see in the second season just how that grows and where that empowerment comes from. And maybe he probably is going to get a little bit more jaded as we go through. I mean, we saw him a little bit snarky in Rogue One, but still very much in the rebellion.
Yeah.
So I am interested to see where his character valleys and mountains are, because I mean, he's gonna have those jaded moments. Yeah. There's no way that you can be a part of a anti-military rebellion and not feel loss or jaded or anger. I
mean, we see that in Rogue One, though.
Exactly.
Where he has that moment with Jyn on the shuttle when they're on their way to Yavin. He tells her, it's the line that everyone loves to quote, "I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old." And then he just goes on this whole thing about, making tough decisions, and he talks to Jyn, kind of gets in her face about, suddenly this cause is real for you.
But that's kind of interesting.
I think he sees himself in her in that conversation, because he was the same way up until a certain point. It isn't until you literally lose the thing that means the most to you that you're willing to really put everything down and go all in on the cause. That's what you see in Andor. It's different things for every person. But when every person gets to the point where they lose literally everything that means the world to them, all of a sudden, then they're going to take that energy and put it into something else. For Cyril Karn, it's the inverse of that. the guy with the hot toys in his bedroom. He loses his job, which meant everything to him right in the beginning of the show. And he literally will do anything it takes to get back at Cassian Andor for losing him his job. And there's also the really weird relationship between Dedra and Cyril. I'm kind of wondering if we're going to see Cyril in season 2. I did not catch him in the teaser. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't catch him in there. I'm interested to see if he is in the ISB now, perhaps, because he saved Dedra's life, you know, and had enough know-how and enough intel to get himself to Ferrix for Cassian's, what's her name, Marva? Marva, her funeral. Yeah. That's B2 Emo's line. The stuttering droid.
Yeah. I think, I don't know. I hope he's in it.
Incel Cyril.
He's so goofy. Yeah, there was so many moments where I was like, that's just like a normal, like, 20-something dude who is down on his luck that I've met before, you know? Like, he's eating cereal at his mom's house. That's just iconic.
Hitting rock bottom, brother. Hit rock bottom.
So I do hope he's in it. I think he's just gonna be Dedra's doormat.
Yeah, probably.
I think he thinks he's gonna be moving up, but she's the.
I don't know. He did literally save her life, though. You know,
but she's not like a caring person.
No, but I think she'll do him a solid because that's how the Empire works. If you help someone out, they'll do you a solid type thing.
But I think it's gonna be more of like, oh, I'll do this for you, but like she's still kind of using him.
Fair. Like, I get what you're saying.
It's gonna be a little bit of a, and I think she's gonna play with maybe some of his infatuation with her.
Ooh. Use him to get what she wants.
Yeah, take that bun out.
Yeah, girl.
Swing her hair around.
With that iPad out.
Yeah. Unbutton her top button.
Dedra the iPad kid.
So, I think that's what their relationship's gonna be if he's in season 2.
Yeah.
Because, why would she really help him?
Right, true.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, give him an actual boost. It's more of like, oh, here's a little tiny step stool so that you're not
maybe
unemployed.
She'll use him as some sort of informant to get better intel. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's going to be some, like, her stomping on him a little bit.
I'm interested. You know what character I really would want to see, but I don't know if we will, would be Kino Loy, the foreman from the prison. One Way Out. I Can't Swim.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh.
I'm assuming he gets captured, because he dies, because he gets pushed off the edge there.
I don't think we're ever going to see him
again. Though, sacrificing everything for the cause.
Yeah, I think his story's over. I think it was implying that you're pushing so much for something, and then I think he just died. I think he just, you know what I mean?
That sucks, man.
Like I don't think he would add, if he lived, I don't think he would add anything to the story, but I think him dying after being the leader in this prison break, and then realizing that he didn't think it fully through, and then him dying is way more impactful than him living. So
it is Star Wars, though. They love to kill and unkill characters.
But so. I don't know. I just feel like with that storyline, it hit with him like literally getting to the fresh air.
It was more fitting that it ended, yeah.
And him, it was, oh my gosh. I did have my heart dropped watching that. And I think that's what they're looking for. And knowing this writer, for Andor and Rogue One, I don't think he would just start pulling people.
The same guy that killed our entire main cast from Rogue One.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think he's gonna find that necessary because he thinks through the whole story and wants people to have gut reactions.
I think I figured out how Krennic is going to play into this. Because the whole thing in Rogue One is where we first see Cassian, he runs into some guy that tells him that the Empire's building the Death Star. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that that's how Krennic plays in, is we get to that point where that guy that Cassian talks to, somehow is involved, and we see how the word gets out that the Empire is building a Death Star. But again, we don't know anything, like the rebellion doesn't know anything about Bodhi Rook. When he leaves Edu, like Galen Erso sends him, the cargo pilot, to go tell Saw Gerrera about what happened. That's isolated from the rebellion finding out on their own that there's a super weapon being built. I'm interested to see how that plays in. I think that might be how Krennic ties into the story, because if we're going to tie this into Rogue One so seamlessly as they've advertised for years and years now, that I would think that that's one of the only ways that could work. Mm-hmm. But they could surprise me. That's the beauty of this show, is that, that they've surprised me before, and I'm excited to see them maybe surprise me again on my predictions,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about, because you're like the same writer who killed everyone off in Rogue One, and going into watching Rogue One, I knew, I kind of remember.
You kind of have in the back of your head, like what's going to happen to all these guys? All these new characters.
I know, and I was just remembering that feeling of oh yeah, right. You forget. I was watching it, even in the last scenes with Cassian and Jyn, and I'm like, wait, no way. No way, they're dying right now.
K2, I remember being in the theater. K2 died. I choked up a little bit when I saw that for the first time. And I in the back of my head, I went, everyone's going to die.
Yeah.
And I kind of when I saw him, the lights go out, his photoreceptors turn off. I'm like, okay, I remember being in high school, and I'm like, oh boy, everybody's probably going to die, aren't they? And then one by one, they all just start going. And they all had great deaths too. It was all, none of them were completely inconsequential. Bodhi gets to do the one. I mean, in a way, they all die getting to do the one thing that they always wanted to do. For K2, it was finally getting a blaster and being able to, hold off the stormtroopers. Mm-hmm. For Chirrut, it was being one with the Force, the Force guiding him to be able to help the team get the Death Star plans out. For Bodhi, it was the same thing. He was able to make a transmission up to the fleet. And plug in so that they were able to. Everyone died, but it got the rebellion one step closer. Yeah. So in a way, nobody had an inconsequential death. No one died for no reason.
Yeah.
Baze Malbus was able to finish off all the Death Troopers that contributed to the death of all the rebels that were trying to get the Master Switch. So it's kind of crazy when you think about it. There's so much meaning behind everything. It was we have to kill all these characters because they don't show up again in the franchise. But there's a way we can do that and really write it well, so that it not only has emotional impact for everyone, but it also has that that extra meaning to it. Every character got to do something. Cassian and Jyn get to know that they transmitted the plans. Mm-hmm. They die, but they know, okay, we helped do something. We contributed. We made the ultimate sacrifice. But, yeah. Andor, the black sheep of Star Wars, if you will. It really is. It really is.
It is excellent.
It is. Andor, honestly, for me... Oh, there goes the phone.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Andor, honestly, for me, is a really enjoyable watch. I have all the action figures for the Black Series line. But, you know, we, what was I going to say?
I ruined it.
We're looking at, Jen got some notifications. We're checking the phone. No, I think Andor, honestly, for me, watches in a way how like a comic book run would read.
Okay.
Because I remember reading like Dark Horse comics a lot when I was a kid for Star Wars and stuff. And you know, not all of it was like this super action packed, like, you know, a lot of it was just, you know, you're really in it with this group of characters, figuring out some sort of mystery, getting a lot of lore as you go on. Some of the Phantom Menace comic books I remember most notably. Those were fun reads, as well as like Clone Wars era. There's this one I remember where like there's this like virus that like is turning all the Gungans into like zombies on this moon, and Dirge is there, and Obi-Wan fights him and stuff. It was really cool. But yeah, Andor for me watches how like the Dark Horse comics read, because it's a lot grittier, and they're not afraid to kill anybody. You know, they're not afraid. Anyone can go at any time. But yeah, Jen, do we have any further thoughts on Andor season 2? Any predictions? You know,
I don't know. I am excited to see Cassian in full form. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
he was. I think we're gonna see him like fully in it. And the first season he was still skeptical the whole time. Yeah. So until the very end, really. So I'm excited to see him in the cause that he's drinking the Kool-Aid from, you know.
What do we think of our fate for, I guess this is a good last kind of point to make. What about our characters, like in Rogue One, that we don't see later on? So we know Cassian's safe. We know Mon Mothma, K2SO. We know those guys are safe. Mm-hmm. What about someone like Luthen Rael? I think he's destined to die.
Okay. I don't know, because he's such a sneaky character. He's in the cause, but he is like a little bit of a snake. Like, let's not.
I mean, he was gonna have Cassian killed.
Yeah, like,
on Ferrix at the end of the show.
So part of me thinks that you're right and that he'll die by the end of the next season, but also I think it's very possible that he avoids it in some way. Interesting. But I don't know if that's fully his character, but also I don't know. He gives some sneaky vibes.
You know who's a character that I think will definitely die? Do you remember Cinta? Vel's kind of love interest. I think that her relationship with Cinta is the one thing holding her back from being in that, like, I've lost literally everything mentality. I think Cinta, who is for the cause already, you know, she's already there where we want her to be, you know, for the rebellion. I think she's going to make a sacrifice or die. Yeah. It's going to drive Vel to do something that she otherwise couldn't do.
True. I agree. Vel's storyline was unexpected in the first season of being a high. I'm thinking of the right person, right? She's
the one that's Mon Mothma's cousin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like that was unexpected, and I think that was an interesting way to go. Yeah. Because I mean, you see that all the time of like someone who is in a position of privilege, even with some type of corrupt regime happening, who can't stomach it. Yeah. Which I think is what's happening with Mon Mothma, but she's in a position of power that she can do something from the inside, and I think that's what she's realizing. Definitely. But with Vel, I think it was kind of a situation where she's like, I can't be in this place without doing something.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting twist.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think she's been holding herself back a little bit, even though she's like, when she's in the field, she's the tough kind of leader character. But I think what we saw by the end of season 1, she was holding herself back a little bit.
I agree.
So I think you're right with. Yeah. There's going to be a push that.
Because at the end of the day, she's always worried about Cinta, and that blinds her in that way from being 100% in.
But with Cinta,
Cinta's there, man. Yeah. She's been there. Yeah.
She's like, and if you die, if I die, it's for the cause. So that will be interesting to see their relationship be challenged to the point of probably them both dying.
Having maybe sacrificed the other. Yeah. For, in order to finish the mission or something like that. It's either I save you or this mission gets completed type thing. I think an interesting twist to kind of tie some loose ends on our Imperial side. Maybe Dedra maybe the ISB finds out that Dedra's had some outside source with Cyril. They have her killed or imprisoned or something, and then Cyril, kind of thinks that he kind of won in that way, and he's going to get some kind of promotion, but then they kill him because he knows too much.
Yeah,
it's the ISB, man. Yeah. This ain't your grunts in the Empire, man. This is like basically the equivalent to the CIA. Yeah. For
I think no one is safe besides the ones we see.
I agree.
I think it's very possible that everyone is dead by the end of next season. But like you said, I think if they all do die, it would be for a reason that progresses either the story or progresses the rebellion.
Yeah, one thing I can tell you the show will not do is kill characters because they need to be dead by the end of the show. There will be more to it than just, this guy needed to be dead for this to happen. So, it's going to have a lot of meaning. Yeah, that's all I got. That's all you got. So, we're obviously hyped for Andor. Let us know if you're hyped for Andor in the comments down below. If you have, if you're listening on a platform that lets you comment. Let us know what you think about Skeleton Crew as well, if you're excited for Skeleton Crew. With that, guys, Jen, do you have any closing remarks?
Watch Andor. It's super cool. And don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. With that, guys, again, make sure to subscribe if you're not yet subscribed to Blitz Transmissions, because I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. And check out all my social media. The links are in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you for the next episode of the Blitzcast. We'll see you later. May the Force be with you.